It's time!
What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin Fights, and this week it's a special edition. We're doing a little bit of a early preview of UFC 273. I'm Keith, joined as always by Tom. Tom, how are you today, bro?
I'm doing good, Keith. We're riding high. I think I only got one wrong following last week's card. So, it's been a really hot 2022 for us so far as betting's concerned and picking's, concerned. So I'm excited to keep it going. A little bit of a bye week this week, but plenty to talk about with UFC 273 coming up. There's, stuff always happening in the news. Nate Diaz, obviously, and him requesting a release from the UFC because he can't get a fight. Or he can't get a good fight offer, and and there's plenty of fights out there for him. So interesting to see what's going on with that. What's going on with you, Keith?
I didn't have as good of a week as you did last week, unfortunately. This was actually my first bad week in quite some time. I had some picks that I was really hot on. But, such is life, man. We turn it around, we go forward, and it's like the fight game, man. Sometimes you get knocked down, but you got to get back up and keep fighting until Herb Dean actually finally calls the fight. So Herb Dean's nowhere close to that just yet in my picking career. But I'm super excited to talk about this 273 card and a little bit of news surrounding it and going on in the fight world. So let's kick it off by talking about Volk versus the Korean Zombie, Alexander the Great Volkanowski. This is the main event for 273, and I'm super excited for this fight. It's going to be incredible. Alexander Volkanovski is one of my favorite fighters out there right now. And that was really just cemented for me after his performance against Brian Ortega last year. And I believe, I can't remember. I think that was in Arizona, but this one's taking place in Jacksonville. You could put Volk anywhere in the world, and he's going to put butts in seats, and he's going to put on a hell of a performance. And I don't think that's going to be any different against the Korean Zombie. I don't really think the Korean Zombie presents as big of a challenge for him as some of his prior opponents. But one of the things that I think is most interesting about this fight is that originally it was slated to be a trilogy fight between Volk and Max Holloway. And Max Holloway got hurt. He's currently injured. And then Volk came out and said that Max was faking the injury to get out of the fight because Volk is currently 2-0 against Max. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts about that, Tom? Do you actually think that Max was faking an injury to get out of it, or was it legitimate? I personally don't think Max is the kind of guy to fake an injury. What do you think?
Yeah, no. Hold on, let me change the screens here. But no, I don't think that Max was faking an injury. I more or less, I don't know what's going on with Max. It is a really peculiar situation, right? You pull out of the fight with an injury and then you come back, months later and you're the backup of the same fight that you pulled out of. I don't know. I guess, yeah, it could make sense. It could be, he pulled out, he thought he re-aggravated something. He happened to rehab faster. And because, they did actually move the date for this fight with Korean Zombie. They did move it back, I think, a month. So that being the case, I guess it's not outside the realm of possibility. There's a lot crazier things going on in the world right now, obviously. So, that may be the case, but it is really fishy. I don't think Max is one to pull out of a fight, and especially, after his last performance against Volk, where, he did better than his first performance, and I thought he arguably won the first performance too. It could go either way. It depends. It's really hard to look at it, completely objectively. I think you could look at it on a variety of different days and come out with different, different outcomes. It's really that close of a fight for me. So both of them really, I think it's probably the two best guys in the division. So I would really like to see that fight. I think, Korean Zombie coming in to this fight off of a loss, it kind of feels almost like a lame duck. I'm just not all that excited about it. I'm more excited. I'm happy to see Volkanovski. I'm excited to keep him, active and things like that. I like seeing him in the news, and I think he's one of the better personalities that the UFC has right now.
Yeah, that's exactly where I stand too. It's not that I'm excited for the fight so much, but I'm more just excited to see Volk. He really is one of the best fighters. Currently one of my favorite. Actually, you know what? I'll put it like this. He's my favorite current champion, and he's one of my favorite fighters of all time. I love like the little things that he does too, going into that Ortega fight with a shaved head so that he could easily slip out of all the chokes that Ortega was going to throw at him. I love his cooking videos on Instagram. He's just such a fun personality and an incredible fighter and a cool story too, to come from professional rugby and succeed to the utmost degree as a mixed martial artist. It's so impressive. But you're right about the lame duck situation. It's not as exciting as it would be if it was someone, higher up in this division. Maybe some point down the road, maybe Calvin Kattar gets another good win, and I'd like to see him get in there after Max Holloway. Or maybe Max somehow wins a belt back, or I don't know, but I'm just super excited for this one. This is going to be. I'm excited for Volk. I'm not excited for this fight, but I'm excited to see Volk. That's where I stand here. Haven't really checked out the odds. I'm looking down there on the screen. I can't really read it. What's that say for Volk? Minus what?
Minus 800 right now for Alexander Volkanovski, which, when you have the Korean Zombie sitting there at plus 550, I don't know. I don't expect him to win, but I may throw a dime or two on him just on the off chance it hits. Whenever there's an underdog that big. I mean, I don't think there's that big of a discrepancy, minus 800 favorite between these two guys. So, I think it's definitely worth throwing a couple if you have it to spare. But I'm not necessarily endorsing, the Korean Zombie as, someone who I would pick if I, gun to my head who I think is going to win the fight. Yeah, I'm obviously going with Volk here.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then it really comes down to, like, how are you going to make money off of this? Well, what method of decision do you think he's going to go with? And that's something that we'll come with thoughts for next week's episode when we really dive deep into, the betting side of things. But speaking of lopsided odds, another one that I haven't looked at the odds at yet, but I have a feeling I know they're going to look, pretty similar to that last one. And that's the co-main event, the rematch of Aljamain Sterling versus Peter Yan. And this is one that I'm actually like super excited for the matchup. And I'm really excited to see Peter Yan because, a lot of controversy, as everybody knows, with that last fight. Peter Yan with the illegal knee, Aljamain Sterling putting on an Oscar-worthy performance. He really should have been there a couple nights ago, witnessing Will Smith slap Chris Rock live in person because he earned it with his performance in that last fight. But super excited for this. Peter Yan, staying active, fighting Corey Sandhagen for the interim title in between, putting on an incredible performance. I was watching the highlights again today. His combinations are just so crisp, Peter Yan. He's got some of the best boxing in all the UFC. I'm so excited to see him come out again. And, it's a very similar situation with what we've seen between like Colby, George. Like, it's just such a heated rivalry where you could tell that these two guys really hate each other. Aljamain Sterling, in my opinion, truly is a paper champ. That 5-fight win streak should really have one L in front of it. But, I'm Adam, I love the comment down below real quick. The shades really set the vibes. No face, no case when we rob the sports books. I love it. Thank you for that. But I'm super excited for this one. And, Peter Yan, feel free to disagree with me if you want, Tom, or anybody in the comments down below. But Aljamain Sterling was being absolutely dominated, right? What did you think of that first matchup?
Yeah, no, I mean, here's the thing. There's some really good videos of Aljamain Sterling actually getting over on Peter Yan a couple of times there. But I think that's a little bit of Peter Yan's, MO. He is going to take a couple of shots as he's moving around, as he's getting to know you. But the thing is over the longevity of the fight, or once he finds that weakness, he's going to exploit it, and he's going to exploit it, viciously. So, he's a guy who he's very tactical, right? He's going to be he's not going to find himself out of position, and he's going to hunt you down, and he's going to walk you down, and he's going to come at you. He may get hit in the process, but ultimately he's a killer, he's a destroyer, and I anticipate him to do that. So even though Aljamain Sterling was putting out a couple videos here and there of things that he was getting over on Peter Yan with, I don't think that it's going to be enough to ultimately put him away. I think Yan has enough defensive wrestling and just overall MMA experience to defend any submission that Aljamain Sterling has to offer. I don't think that Aljamain is going to catch him on the feet. But then again, we've always been wrong before. Aljamain has a lot of confidence coming into it. I don't know if it's actual legitimate confidence or if it is confidence that he's telling himself with, trying to inflate himself and will himself to win here. I don't know. I don't think anybody really looks at him as someone who's earned the championship belt. Maybe you could say that Peter Yan doesn't deserve it either, being that he did lose it, right? He committed an illegal act, so he maybe should be stripped in some people's minds. So maybe this is a unification bout. You could maybe call Aljamain Sterling the interim champion. But yeah, I expect Yan to win this one. I think these top two fights in the card are going to be pretty straightforward.
There's one thing that I really noticed going back and watching Peter Yan's last couple of fights, especially the one against Aljo and the one against Corey Sandhagen, is that those are both men that like to use flying knees. And Peter Yan is actually pretty susceptible to them. He did get a couple landed on him by both guys. And I just think that the ultimate irony, would be Aljamain Sterling somehow finishing this fight with a flying knee right to Peter Yan's chin or his forehead or something and putting him to sleep. That would just be so ironic. And it is absolutely something that Peter Yan is susceptible to. He's gotten hit with a lot of them in the past two fights. Something also to look out for too is Peter Yan almost didn't get his visa for this one. And he was pretty funny online saying like, oh, Aljo, your dream didn't come true. I don't even know who would have stepped in, last minute for this one, but I'm glad that Peter Yan is here. Unfortunately, though, his cornermen didn't get their visas. So I'm also very curious to see who is going to be cornering Peter Yan for this one. If he's going to go with, he had a little bit of banter back and forth with Henry Cejudo. I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like that's more unfriendly banter than friendly banter. But I saw a couple of rumors online that it could be, another Russian that goes by the name of Khabib Nurmagomedov, potentially cornering Peter Yan. And Khabib, as far as I know, really has one loss as a coach this year. And so that would definitely be something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I mean, that would be an interesting pairing. Especially right now with, Russians kind of being on a little touchy ground, just kind of in general with the whole world, right or wrong, one way or another, it's just kind of a fact that it is definitely a little bit tense, right? So that would be interesting to see them cornering together. And I think a lot of the different combinations, but, I think ultimately that just kind of goes into the Yan against the world story and like, all right, what, they took my belt from me, I'm coming back. Like, you can, they let him sit out and to get his surgery, right? In Yan's mind, he maybe didn't need it or he needed it, but, it was definitely an opportune time to elect to have the surgery, right, wrong, or otherwise. Hey, listen, I'm in that situation. If I don't know, listen, if he has the belt, he can make the decisions. Why not do it while you're champ and go into your first title defense at full strength, right? In all honesty, if anyone's in that position, are you really going, what, let me defend it injured and then I'll get my surgery. And it's like, I'm getting my surgery so I can defend it 100%. Like, so I don't know. I mean, in Aljo, he's just an insufferable human being, so I'm not defending him being that. But then again, that's got us all talking about it. So maybe that's worthwhile, and maybe that's worth talking about. Maybe it's Colby Covington-esque. And honestly, the more I think about it, the more I'm actually drawing comparisons. Is Aljamain Sterling the Colby Covington of the bantamweight division?
I see the points that you're making, but I think the difference is that there's actually Colby Covington fans out there. I don't think that there's a single Aljamain Sterling fan that exists on the face of this planet whatsoever. There's a lot of choices that he's made throughout his career that have really just turned people off from him. He was born, raised in, I believe, Long Island, and claims his parents' country of Jamaica and I know that on the MMA Twitter side of things has turned a lot of people off from him. His insufferable personality, the decision to not continue fighting turned off in that championship bout turned a lot of people off. But, I understand from his perspective, these are personal choices for him. I think the thing that turns me off from Aljamain Sterling the most as a fan, though, is when he gets on the MMA Hour, one appearance, and he's all about, oh, I'm a troll. And then the next time he's like, well, these things that people say to me online, they hurt my feelings. It's like, dude, make up your mind. If you're going to be this tough, troll personality, just stick to it. Don't flip back and forth on all that. But speaking of a guy that flipped back and forth on things, we also have to talk about Hamza Chemiev, who nearly retired last year due to COVID, complications from COVID, and made his comeback this year. I'm sorry, late last year against Li Jingliang. An incredible moment. Picked him up. He yelled at Dana White, pay me more money, something along those lines, and dropped him. Ended the fight right then and there in the first round, and is fighting one of the top contenders in the welterweight division in Gilbert Burns. And the thing that is most astonishing to me is the way that these lines are moving, because Gilbert Burns is legit. Gilbert Burns is an animal, and he put up, it was a short fight, but he put up an incredible fight with Kamaru Usman, seeing what Kamaru does to so many other people. And it's just bizarre to me because Hamza, last I checked, is around minus 800, and Gilbert Burns is around like the plus 400 range, depending on where you're looking. So I wonder if this is an overestimation of Hamza by Vegas, or if this is a trap. But either way, I saw you tweeting this before. How can you not sprinkle a little bit on a guy like Gilbert Burns at a plus 400 mark? I don't get it. What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, Gilbert Burns is definitely experienced inside of the UFC, and he's battle tested against some of the top divisional opponents. The top guys out there, whatever you want to call them, top fighters. I fully expect Gilbert Burns to, compete. I don't think this is going to be Hamza Chemiev coming in there and completely rolling over Gilbert Burns. I mean, if it is, Jesus, look out, right? Like, everyone would definitely be put on notice throughout the world. I mean, and there's a lot of people who are training with Hamza Chemiev who are saying, like, listen, this guy, he hasn't showcased all of what he can do yet in the UFC. So it'd be really interesting if he does run through Gilbert Burns to see what happens because of that. And what do they do next? How quick he turns around? Does he go to 85? Like, all questions that, it immediately, honestly, and here's the true fact. If he can get through his 5th UFC fight and have, 5 strikes or whatever, something nuts like that running through, a championship contender in Gilbert Burns and a world jiu-jitsu champion. I mean, especially like, it's going to be a world sensation. It's going to be Mike Tyson, it's going to be gigantic. And, if there wasn't so much other political and social things going on in the world, I mean, this would definitely captivate even more people. So, yeah, Dana White's going to have something on his hands, and he better lock Hamza Chemiev down early because right now, I mean, there's definitely a potential for some kind of insane superstardom depending on how this goes. But I think realistically, I think it is a good fight. I think it would be, that's why it would be such a spectacle, because he would be this otherworldly talent that's running through the top competition that we know. So if he's that far ahead, yeah, of course it's going to be a spectacle. But that's so rare. I fully anticipate this is going to be, a very tough fight. And I think that the spread of the odds are not indicative of the true talent discrepancy here.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to see Hamzat, commonly referred to nowadays as cum shots, first real challenge in the UFC. I can't imagine that those strike numbers are going to remain. And, it's just still crazy. It's bewildering that Gil Burns is over plus 400, because is Hamza really like that incredible? This is something we're going to find out next weekend. But I just can't see, like, Gilbert Burns not having answers for what Hamzat's going to do. He can stand with him on the ground, and he can stand with him on his feet, and he can roll with him on the ground. And if Hamzat really does get this done in like some spectacular fashion early in the fight, yeah, you're right. It's sensational. And, I want to see more transparency of Hamzat, more of his personality out there in the limelight, because we are starting to see this friendship between him and Darren Till, which I love. I think it's just such a funny, interesting combination. They're trying to invite other guys into like their little group, and we're starting to see more of Hamzat's personality through Darren Till's social media presence. And he is a fun guy. He's entertaining. And I'm looking forward to, I hope there's a press conference for this. I can't imagine that there wouldn't be, especially because of the vitriol between Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan just alone. Like, those two guys have to be on stage talking back to each other. But I'm excited to see Hamzat on that stage as well, if that's the case, and see what kind of lines maybe he drops. I feel like he could be probably a funny guy when it comes down to it. So just a lot to look forward to with Hamzat. I like Gilbert, but
Speaking of drops, Nate Diaz asking to be released from the UFC. In NFL, other terms that may be considered, asking to be dropped. So, what's your take on that? Personally, I mean, I was listening to Helwani talk about it, and you say your piece first. I don't want to cut you off.
I was just going to say that Nate Diaz was somewhat inactive for some time. And, I think that there's a lot of fights out there that can be made with him. But fighting, especially when there's a guy like Dustin Poirier, fighting is a dance danced by two people, right? And there needs to be a suitable partner, made by the matchmakers. And that person has to agree to the dance. And the fight that everybody wants to see is Dustin Poirier. And Dustin Poirier spoke after his last fight that he wants a lot of time off. And I think that that's probably a big reason for the inactivity of Nate Diaz right now. But Nate Diaz is citing that he has like a lot more exciting things to do right now. I can't really see what else that would be. Is he going to partake in mixed martial arts somewhere at some other promotion? Is he going to box Jake Paul, which I think would be a good financial decision for him, but I don't think that would be a very smart athletic or competitive decision for him. Just the legacy that he has in the UFC, at least go out with something better than a Leon Edwards fight. I don't think that it's the best decision. A loss to Leon Edwards. I just don't think it's the best decision for Nate Diaz. I think for him to be asking for it on social media rather than in person or through an agent, through his manager, is really just for show more than anything. He's trying to, he's really been active on social media over the past few months, talking a lot of smack. But I think, it's more for show. It's more to draw eyes to him and more to light a fire under the fans to then light a fire under Dana, Hunter, and, Mick Maynard and all those people that are matchmakers over at the UFC. So, I think it's a little bit of posturing more than anything, because I just can't see what else Nate Diaz would be doing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think the UFC is entitled to, I think they have to offer the fighters a certain amount of fights per year. And I think there's stipulations in the contract, and Helwani was going into this, that they actually didn't offer him a fight. They had to, by contract, offer him a fight at a certain point. After Hamza beat his last opponent in dominant fashion, they offered Nate Diaz Hamza Chemiev, knowing that Nate Diaz, like, I'm not going to take that fight. That's all risk, no, like, why I'm not going to take that fight. So he turned it down. But then in offering him that fight, got extended his contract 6 more months. So they can effectively, and that was in December, so they can effectively hold his contract, offer him a fight that he wouldn't take for, in May, and extend, and basically just wait out his career, which is why he's saying, like, hey, like, I need to, he's like, hey, can I get out? Like, can I do this? Can I, like, he wants to fight. He doesn't want to sit back and wait. So there is an aspect of the UFC here that, could be being a little bit nefarious.
That's interesting. See, I hadn't really seen too much of the news and the deep details surrounding it. I didn't catch the Ariel clip talking about that. And, it is interesting to hear from that perspective as well, because, knowing that he wasn't going to take that Hamza fight, no matter how entertaining it would be and how many eyes, seriously, like Gilbert Burns and Hamzat's a great matchup, and that's going to draw eyes. But Nate Diaz versus Hamza, that's another great matchup. I don't think that it would go down any other way than Hamza just destroying Nate Diaz, but Nate Diaz draws eyes. But I think the thing that they really should do, despite how many times Conor is saying that he's going to fight Usman, I think the biggest thing to do is, run it back for the trilogy and have Nate Diaz and Conor fight once more. And then, let Nate Diaz ride off into the sunset and go do his own thing. But I just can't see what else he would be doing. I just don't think it would be a smart decision for him to just go elsewhere. But he is still a name, and maybe somebody like the PFL would offer him more money to come there and, do his thing. But, I understand where he's coming from. It does probably feel like you're being trapped to some degree. And it's tough, to see the decline of him and his brother in terms of just fighting ability over the past couple of years. But I understand the decision from his point. Oh, how do we feel about Paddy the Baddy? Said he won't make a top 15 fight, right? Well, he won't take a top 15 fight. So now we're taking live questions. Are you cool with answering this one real quick, Tom? Because I think, go for it.
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit. I mean, listen, it makes sense, right? At this point, he's getting paid less than he's worth. And I think if you have a problem with that, maybe you have a problem with what the UFC is actually offering as a contract, but then you have to have a problem with what the fighters are signing, what the managers are negotiating, what the agents are doing. Like, you have to have a problem with the whole system. And if you do, then fair game, right? But it is what it is as for right now. And everybody has to sign their name on the dotted line. So you can't cry about spilled milk. We can say we want to reform the system, but as we're talking about it right now, the system is the system. Paddy the Baddy signed either a 3, 4, or 5 fight deal when he started, probably 3 or a 4 fight deal. He's already fought 2 fights. He's proven that he is a massive draw and it will only get bigger. There's no reason for him to risk diminishing that flame for the current price. Why not build it for cheap where he can make his money outside? Whereas, all of that is part of him being a UFC fighter, and that him being a good and notable UFC fighter, that is the contingent piece for every other avenue for him to make money. So it doesn't matter if he's not making that much from the UFC right now. He's making so much in basically affiliate, connections because he's a UFC fighter. He's making so much more now than he did when he was a Cage Warriors champion. Being a UFC fighter, he's not even ranked. He's a UFC fighter, and he's making so much more than being a Cage Warriors champion. So think about that. And then, I understand the fighters should get paid more, but there definitely is a value that comes to being a UFC fighter, especially there's a value. It's all a business, right? It's called prize fighting for a reason. So Paddy the Baddy brings his value to the UFC in eyeballs, and then the UFC makes money off of those eyeballs. And then in turn, Paddy the Baddy also is making money off the same eyeballs from the people he brings. And, the UFC is a contingent piece to those eyeballs. So it all kind of works together. So, if I'm Paddy, I'm going, no, I'm not going to risk me, losing my rank, losing my status, losing whatever I have as a UFC fighter. I'm not going to risk that for what I'm currently being paid. Now, if I'm going to get paid $3, $4, $5 million for that fight, and then, I can say, hey, I made all this money, and then that's another outlet, then boom, you're automatically in that stratosphere of making that type of money, then, you're fine with taking that extra risk. It's a cost value assessment here, and there's no benefit for him taking a top 15 fight against whether he's ready or not. That's not the point. The point is why would he risk his place right now at this current price? It doesn't make sense for him. So yeah, I'm with him. Why not take? I mean, he shouldn't deny fights, but he's like, no, I'm not taking a top 15 fight. And honestly, the UFC probably they would like to squeeze him for a top 15 fight right now, but also they may not think that he's ready. And they may want to slow his roll down and give him a couple warm-up fights too, because you don't want to just throw him to the fire. So, a lot of different angles being worked here, and that's why.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, and it very much speaks to, the Sean O'Malley type of mentality too, where I was watching the Dave Portnoy show, actually, because he had Paddy the Baddy and he had Molly McCann on this past week, at the same time. And one thing that was really interesting to hear was, Dave Portnoy's reaction to the fact that Molly McCann made like a lot more money off of her fight on the UFC, the UK card than Paddy did. He was just so astonished by that because, you would think obviously Paddy brings more eyes than Molly McCann, but it's just based on how many fights he has and everything. And like you said, it's very much the 7-figure deal that he has with Barstool. similar to Sean O'Malley fighting guys like Julian Paiva and Cheeto Vera before he was became a little bit bigger of a star. They make so much more money from doing things like Twitch and affiliate deals. So yeah, you totally hit the nail right on the head with that. The last thing I do want to touch on real quick is I'm really excited for Dracus du Plessis to step in against Kelvin Gastelum. Super excited for that matchup. It was announced that Imavov could not get a visa to come fight Kelvin Gastelum. So, I'm super pumped, though, because du Plessis was supposed to fight Chris Curtis. That would have been an absolute banger, but du Plessis is another star in the making, South African future champ, in my opinion. So that's what I'm super pumped for. Do you have anything else? We can answer this one last question. Masvidal facing charges. What's your take on that whole situation? We have touched on this before, but, we can jump on it real quick again. I think that as a fighter, and this might have been something that you had mentioned, and I actually heard GSP talk about it too recently. Your whole game as a fighter is not to let somebody control your emotions, because your emotions can affect how you act in the cage, in competition, and really just make you act differently than you would under a clear head. You have to keep a clear head no matter what. And Masvidal couldn't handle the trash talk from Colby in the press conference. Well, actually, he was inviting it and said, keep it coming, when, Colby was talking about Masvidal and how bad he was as a father and an ex-wife. Never actually mentioned Colby's kids or his ex-wife in a negative manner whatsoever. But, and then Colby was constantly trashing him literally every day on Instagram for the past, every day since the fight. So, I just think it was really unwise of Masvidal to, go out there in a mask, notably an anti-mask guy during the whole, coronavirus, went out there in a mask, funny enough, to clearly hide his identity, and assault Colby Covington in public. It was just so stupid. And if this was anybody else that did this to any other person off the street, they'd probably be facing charges as well. So Jorge Masvidal just proved everything right that Colby said, that he's a criminal. And all the trash talk about him, you're a bad dad. Well, now you're going to have to spend time away from your kids, potentially in prison. And all that money that you made off the pay-per-view, well, you're now going to lose that in a lawsuit. So, just really unwise of George to go out there and do what he did. He just didn't act in a professional manner. Now, you could argue that what Colby said to get him to that point was unprofessional too, but, it's also the fight game. And you had the 25 minutes in the octagon to do your thing, and you just couldn't get it done. So, if Colby wants to press charges, he can't press charges for George hitting him legally, but he attacked him illegally. That's my take on it. What do you think, Tom?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, it was ultimately George's, he couldn't have pressed charges if, George didn't hit him. So, that was ultimately George's decision, was to run up and hit him. And, Colby's always, Colby wants to be the bad guy. That's the persona he's trying to put on. That's what he thinks sells for him. So, if you attack a guy, what's more annoying and what's more, typical, what's more against the grain than pressing charges for something like that? Forrest's going to do it. And I saw it on Twitter. Somebody was like, dude, this guy announces every single fight that he is cool with the FDNY, that he's cool with, police departments, and he is cool with every law enforcement aspect, and he gives them a shout out all the time. What would you think when he gets attacked, that he wouldn't immediately have everyone come to his back? Not that they wouldn't anyway, but at the end of the day, I think it was probably just silly on George's part, and at the end of the day, you I gotta say it, stop saying at the end of the day, but you hit it right on the head when you mentioned that the whole attack method from Colby to George was that he was a bad father, that he was a bad husband, that he didn't pay for his kids, or that he had to pay, but only because he was court mandated. Colby praised Maritza and that she took care of them when neither of them made money and they were training. So Colby was very positive towards the individuals, but he was negative toward Masvidal and his treatment of them. And, what way to go about and prove Colby wrong, but then to be on the Miami Strip on a Monday afternoon or evening, close enough. Now there's reports that come out that maybe Bob Menery was in talks with Masvidal and it may have been set up. But at the end of the day, being aggressive, being out of control, doing that, and then putting yourself in a position where you could go to jail, I think is, just kind of proving what Colby was saying more and more right. And, Colby being, this, that, or the other thing by actually pressing charges and sending him to jail. Like George put himself in that position, and that was a weakness on his part. So at the end of the day, that's how I feel on it. And I have to say, stop saying at the end of the day. Hold me to it. Jesus.
It's all right. Well, at the end of the day, you can keep saying at the end of the day. I'm cool with it. As long as you make a good point at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But so thank you for all the questions, all you people from home. Really appreciate you watching, tuning in. But we're gonna wrap it up here. We figured we'd do a quick, sweet, short episode for you guys. Please make sure that you're following us on Instagram and Twitter @_PickinWinners. Both of our @names are okay. There we go. Right there. Mine's right there. Tom's is over there as well. And, our YouTube is also Pickin Winners, and our website with a lot of our blog content is pickinwinners.org. We have a couple of new people to the team. We got one guy named Riley in particular. Riley's doing a really good job. He was having a little bit of a slump, a little bit of a slow start there, but now he's starting to pick it up. It's really good to see. We got guys like Tyler doing their lacrosse work over there. Connor killing it with basketball as well. Joe doing golf, hockey. So we've got a really great team here at Pickin Winners. And thank you to the team. Really appreciate all your hard work. Thank you to Tom for joining me again for another great episode. And thank you, all you great people at home, for watching, commenting, liking, and subscribing. Tune in for the next episode.